A soldier, weary from war, steps off a cab at 2:17 a.m., eager to surprise his wife. But as he walks into his home, something feels wrong. A darkened porch, a strange car outside, and muffled sounds from upstairs. What should have been a moment of joy turns into a scene of chaos. 2 gunshots echo in the silence, leaving 2 bodies on the floor. What really happened that night? Was it the result of rage and heartbreak, or was it part of a carefully orchestrated plan? Welcome to Vic's True Crime Stories, where we dig into the untold truths behind the headlines. Stay with us as we uncover the chilling conspiracy behind the homecoming that turned deadly. Before we begin, don't forget to hit subscribe, because you don't want to miss stories like this. Trust me, they're way better than Lucy's excuses. A decorated soldier returning home from Afghanistan, eager to surprise his wife for their anniversary. A wife texting her lover, arranging a secret rendezvous. A detective piecing together evidence that reveals a plot darker than anyone could imagine. This isn't just a story of betrayal, it's one of greed, deception, and a conspiracy that nearly succeeded. As we unravel this chilling case, every detail will leave you questioning trust and loyalty. But before we dig into the lies and the shocking truths, do yourself a favor and hit that subscribe button. Here on Vic's True Crime Stories, we serve stories that are more twisted than Job's excuses and far more satisfying than Lucy's plotting. Seriously, hit subscribe, because the only thing worse than missing this story is being caught without an alibi. Philip Benjamin stepped through the door of his own home, the familiar click of the lock echoing into the silence. But the air inside felt different. Heavy, tainted with a mix of scents that didn't belong. Something musky and sharp, unfamiliar cologne, mingled with the unmistakable odor of stale beer. His eyes scanned the room, catching small things that were wrong. The wedding photo that had always sat upright on the entry table now lay face down, the garden outside overrun with weeds, beer bottles scattered carelessly on the porch railing. Then he noticed the sound. Muffled, faint at first, but unmistakable. It came from upstairs, groans, creaking, and the rhythm of betrayal. His training kicked in, keeping him steady. With precise, silent steps, he moved through the house, his heartbeat loud in his ears. His mind raced, but his body was calm, conditioned for moments when hesitation could cost everything. At the top of the stairs, light spilled out from the master bedroom, its golden hue spilling into the hallway like an invitation. Philip's hand hesitated for a fraction of a second before he pushed the door open. And there they were. His wife, Lucy, tangled in the sheets with a man who wasn't him. The stranger's muscular frame loomed over her, his skin marked with tattoos, his sweat glistening under the yellow glow of the bedside lamp. Their wedding photo, cruel and ironic, sat upright on the nightstand, watching it all unfold. Lucy's eyes widened, and a scream tore from her throat, shattering the frozen moment. The man moved fast, reaching for something metallic on the floor, a gun. But Philip had survived war zones. He moved faster. In 2 steps, he crossed the room, his hand locking onto the man's wrist just as his other fist crushed into his throat. The gun clattered to the hardwood floor, and chaos erupted. The fight was brutal, raw and unrelenting. Bodies crashed into furniture, fists collided with bone, and blood sprayed across the once pristine walls. Every blow Philip landed felt like both an act of survival and a desperate attempt to make sense of what he was seeing. Amid the chaos, his hand found the gun, cold and steady in his grip. The man lunged, desperation in his eyes, but Philip didn't hesitate. 2 gunshots rang out, sharp and deafening. Silence settled over the room, broken only by the heavy panting of Philip's breath. The stranger lay face down, unmoving, 2 bullet holes in his chest. Across the room, Lucy slumped against the wall, clutching her shoulder, blood staining her crimson dress an even darker shade. Philip stood in the center of the wreckage, the gun still warm in his hand, his heart pounding as he took in the devastation. At first glance, it seemed like a simple case. A soldier, home early, walking in on his wife with another man, and violence erupting in the aftermath. But as investigators would later uncover, this wasn't a simple case of passion and rage. This was something far more calculated, far more sinister. Months before that fateful night, the seeds of betrayal had already been sown. Lucy Benjamin, once the devoted wife of a decorated soldier, had allowed her loneliness to pull her into the arms of Job Williams. Job wasn't just a lover. He was a former gang member who had traded street life for the appearance of legitimacy, running a chain of car washes on Chicago's South Side. But beneath his polished exterior, Job thrived on manipulation and greed. What started as stolen glances and flirtation turned into secret meetings in motel rooms and late-night phone calls. Lucy, yearning for excitement and feeling abandoned by Philip's long deployments, quickly fell under Job's spell. But this wasn't just about passion, it was about profit. Big profit. What are we even waiting for? Job had asked during one of their meetings, his voice low but insistent. Lucy hesitated, but his words lingered. "You're wasting time, baby. Every month he's still breathing, that money's just sitting there." The money he referred to was a $1 million life insurance policy, one Lucy had convinced Philip to increase under the guise of securing their family's future. It wasn't hard to persuade him. He trusted her, loved her. He thought she was looking out for their life together. Little did he know, she was plotting to end his. Behind closed doors, the plan began to take shape. They referred to it as the perfect accident. Job suggested they wait until Philip was back in Afghanistan, where accidents were common and plausible. But impatience soon got the better of him. Job grew more aggressive, pressuring Lucy to act quickly. "He's deployed in 2 months," he texted her. "It's now or never." The burner phone conversations revealed more, detailed discussions about deployment schedules, insurance payout clauses, and even ideas for untraceable methods. The greed spilled into their day-to-day lives. Lucy had started dipping into Philip's combat pay, using it to buy Job expensive gifts, a new watch, those custom rims for his Chrysler 300. It was only a matter of time before Philip's trust was stretched too thin to hold. The signs were there if anyone had been looking closely. Her co-workers at the salon noticed she was distracted, often taking long lunches or leaving early. She started showing up with new clothes and jewelry, Shanice, her co-worker, would later recall. Said Philip had sent extra money, but something about it didn't add up. And it wasn't just her spending habits. Lucy's demeanor had changed. Once nervous about the plan, she became more assertive, even cold, when discussing it with Job. "We need to stop talking and make this happen," she wrote in one message. "I can't keep pretending every time he FaceTimes me." What Job and Lucy didn't anticipate was Philip's early return. They had planned for time, a window to perfect their scheme and secure the payout without suspicion. But life had other plans, and when Philip walked through that door that humid July night, their carefully constructed facade began to crack. The affair, the greed, the plan. It was all there, hidden in plain sight, waiting to be unraveled. Detective Williams arrived at the scene, his trained eyes scanning the wreckage of what appeared to be a domestic dispute gone terribly wrong. Bloodstains marked the walls, a shattered lamp lay on the floor, and a man lay motionless with 2 bullet holes in his chest. But something about the scene gnawed at him. A decorated soldier, trained to survive in war zones, losing control in a moment of passion? Maybe. But Williams had seen enough to know when something didn't add up. And this, he thought, didn't add up. As the investigation unfolded, small details began to paint a bigger picture. Lucy Benjamin, the injured wife, claimed it was a tragic misunderstanding, her husband snapping in a jealous rage. But Williams wasn't convinced. The first red flag came from Lucy's phone records. Buried beneath everyday texts and calls were messages to a burner phone, a line she used exclusively to communicate with Job Williams. Those messages told a far more chilling story. "Deployment is perfect timing," one message read. Another said, "Policy is updated. We'll be set for life." The pieces fell into place. This wasn't just an affair. This was a conspiracy to kill Philip and cash in on his $1 million life insurance policy. The deeper Williams dug, the darker it got. Security footage from the neighborhood showed Lucy and Job entering the Benjamin home multiple times while Philip was overseas. Shanice, Lucy's co-worker, gave a damning testimony. She used to be all about Philip, showing us pictures, talking about how proud she was. But once Job came into the picture, she changed. Started wearing more expensive stuff, leaving work early. I remember thinking, where's all this money coming from? Then came the laptop found in Job's car. Williams stared at the screen, shaking his head as he scrolled through the search history. Untraceable poisons. Staging accidents in war zones. Making death look natural. It was all there, cold and calculated. They had been planning for months, waiting for Philip to deploy again, where his death could be disguised as a combat casualty. Job had even reached out to a contact who specialized in fabricating evidence to make it look like a Taliban attack. And yet, despite their meticulous planning, one thing ruined everything: Philip's early return. The investigation uncovered damning security footage, financial records, and even deleted emails. One email, retrieved from Lucy's account, was addressed to Job. "It has to look like an accident. We can't risk it coming back on us. Just wait until he's overseas." For Williams, it was no longer a question of if Lucy and Job had conspired to kill Philip. It was a matter of proving it in court. If you're hooked already, hit that subscribe button. Because trust me, the only thing more shocking than the betrayal we've uncovered is the justice that's about to be served. And no, we don't deal with burner phones here, just jaw-dropping stories like this one. The courtroom buzzed with tension as the trial began. Lucy Benjamin sat at the defense table, her face pale, her once polished demeanor now stripped away. Across the room sat Philip Benjamin, stoic and unmoving, his military bearing unshaken even in the face of betrayal. The weight of what had happened hung heavy in the air, but the evidence was about to speak louder than any words. By this point, the case against Lucy was staggering. The prosecution laid it out piece by piece, starting with the texts. The courtroom fell silent as the prosecutor read messages exchanged between Lucy and Job. "Deployment is perfect timing," one text read. "We'll be set for life," said another. Each message pulled the jury deeper into the chilling reality of what Philip had unknowingly walked into. The financial records came next. Lucy had drained Philip's combat pay to fund her affair with Job. Expensive dinners, jewelry, even the custom rims on Job's Chrysler 300. But it was the recordings that delivered the most damning blow. The jury watched as a grainy video played on the screen, the audio crackling but clear. Lucy's voice, cold and detached, cut through the room. "Just make sure it's after the policy kicks in. He deserves that much at least." Gasps rippled through the gallery as the weight of her words sank in. The defense tried to paint Lucy as a victim, a woman trapped by her husband's PTSD, abandoned by his long deployments, and manipulated by a controlling lover. But her cold calculations in the recordings made sympathy hard to muster. The prosecutor didn't let the jury forget who the true victim was. Philip, the man who had trusted Lucy implicitly, the man who had risked his life to provide for her, only to become the target of her greed. As the trial dragged on, Lucy's composed facade began to crack. During cross-examination, when asked about the burner phone and the emails, she broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this," she cried. But the jury wasn't swayed. The closing arguments made the stakes clear. "This isn't just about infidelity," the prosecutor declared. "This is about a calculated conspiracy to end a man's life for financial gain." Lucy Benjamin didn't just betray her husband, she plotted his death. It took the jury only a few hours to deliberate. When they returned, the verdict was unanimous: guilty on all counts. Lucy's sobs echoed through the courtroom as the judge sentenced her to 25 years in prison. For Philip, the legal proceedings were a bittersweet vindication. He was granted probation after accepting a plea deal for involuntary manslaughter, a decision influenced by the overwhelming evidence of the conspiracy against him. Yet, as he walked out of the courtroom, a free man, he carried the weight of everything he had lost. Their paths now diverged in stark contrast. Lucy was led away in handcuffs, her head bowed, facing decades behind bars. Philip, meanwhile, began the slow process of rebuilding his life. He left the army, moved to a small apartment, and started attending counseling sessions at the VA. The trust he had once placed in Lucy was shattered, but he was determined to find a way forward. This wasn't just a story of betrayal, it was a story of greed, manipulation, and the devastating consequences of misplaced trust. What drove Lucy to plot against the man who loved her? Was it loneliness, fear, or something far darker? As for Philip, he walked away alive but forever changed. The courtroom drama might be over, but the echoes of this conspiracy would linger for years to come. The aftermath of that fateful night rippled far beyond the walls of the Benjamin home, shaking the very foundation of their community. Lucy Benjamin, once seen as the devoted wife of a soldier, became a pariah overnight. Her parents, once vocal about their disapproval of Philip, disowned her entirely after the trial, unable to reconcile the daughter they raised with the woman who plotted murder. The salon where Lucy worked shuttered its doors temporarily, caught in the storm of public outrage. Former clients refused to return, gossip swirled among her co-workers, and Shanice, her former friend, spoke to reporters. "She sat right there," Shanice said, pointing to an empty chair, talking about how much she loved Philip, how proud she was. Meanwhile, she was using his money to fund her affair and plan his death. It's cold. Just cold. Even Job's seemingly legitimate car wash empire couldn't escape the fallout. Customers stopped coming, employees quit, and the business quickly collapsed. The stain of his actions, conspiring with Lucy and using his connections to plan Philip's death, was too much for anyone to overlook. As for Philip, his life became a quiet struggle to rebuild. He left the army, his sense of purpose fractured, and moved into a modest apartment on the other side of town. The betrayal haunted him, the memories of that night replaying in his mind with cruel clarity. But he found solace in small steps: counseling sessions at the VA, support from his church, and the unwavering presence of his brother Michael. Still, the questions lingered, unspoken but ever present. What if he hadn't come home early? What if he had ignored the signs? And even now, with justice served, could he ever truly move forward? For the community, the case became a cautionary tale, a whispered story of betrayal and greed, passed around in hushed tones. For Philip, it was a life forever divided, before and after. But for you, the audience, the story doesn't end here. What do you think? Was Lucy driven by desperation, loneliness, or fear of a life she no longer wanted? Or was it pure greed that led her down this dark path? And Philip, did his actions that night save his life, or did they leave him with wounds far deeper than any he faced in combat? Tell us your thoughts in the comments below, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Because here at Vic's True Crime Stories, we dig deep into the stories that leave us questioning everything we thought we knew about trust, love, and betrayal. Philip Benjamin sat alone in his small apartment, the faint patter of rain against the windows the only sound breaking the silence. The divorce papers lay before him, a stark reminder of everything he had lost. His hand trembled slightly as he picked up the pen, signing his name at the bottom of the page. This wasn't just an end to his marriage. It was the final chapter of a life he thought he understood. In the end, trust shattered is a wound that may never fully heal. For Philip, coming home early saved his life, but it also left scars far deeper than any he carried from the battlefield. The betrayal he uncovered wasn't just a blow to his heart, it was a reminder of the thin line between love and deception, between loyalty and greed. This case reminds us of the lengths some will go for money and the devastating consequences that ripple through lives when trust is broken. It's a chilling story of how far greed can push people, and how the truth, no matter how buried, always finds a way to surface. If you're as shocked as we are, make sure to subscribe to Vic's True Crime Stories. Because while we can't promise you peace of mind, we can promise tales of love, betrayal, and crime that will leave you questioning everything. And don't worry, we'll keep all the drama on screen, not in your inbox.